Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial One's Belonging series, where we look at the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian and minority ethnic community. And it's a chance for us to get to know each other in a different way, to understand what it is that's helped us to form our identity and to understand where we would like to go. And it's just having those candid conversations. And this week we've got Mimi Nwosu. Hope I've said your surname right.
Yeah, Nwosu.
Yeah, right, Nwosu. And she's a civil engineer, right? And she's an award-winning civil engineer, not just a civil engineer, award-winning civil engineer, who won the Civil Engineering of London Civil Engineering Award in 2020. But we're going to come to that later on, because I want to hear her story about how she got into civil engineering and what it is that helps her find her place where she belongs. So, Mimi, I'm going to start off by asking you that question of what is it that, as you were growing up, that gave you your sense of identity, your sense of belonging?
So growing up, I come from a Nigerian background. So both my parents are Nigerian, and one thing they always instilled in us was culture. A constant reminder of where we're from, whether that be by going back to Nigeria regularly, by just practicing our culture, like practicing like our traditional cultural events, speaking our language, just like kind of like conversing with other people who are part of our community, just understanding our traditional values, eating the food and all those kind of things. Yeah, that was kind of like how my culture was definitely instilled into me. Yeah.
So and they surrounded you with the culture, even though you were living in the UK.
Yes. And that too. So my dad is born and bred in Nigeria, but my mum is born and bred in the UK. I say bred, right. But my mum is born and raised in the UK.
Yeah.
And I always thought I had like a balance of the two. So yes, I was very tied to my cultural heritage of being Nigerian and being of Igbo descent as well. But I was also brought up because of my mother, brought up in a very westernized way as well. So it's kind of like balancing the two.
Yeah.
Which sometimes it was a bit conflicting, because I was like, who am I? Like, I'm born and bred in the UK, but I'm definitely Nigerian because my parents are Nigerian. I know my culture and everything like that. But my mother being born and bred in Manchester in particular, it was that kind of, I don't know, I was like, Black British, like what is, like, do you know what I mean? But like I said, I've always my Nigerian roots anyway, because at the end of the day, both of my parents are Nigerian. And due to my dad's influence, a lot of my dad's influence, that was heavily installed in our upbringing.
In what way? You mentioned about the cultural events going back to Nigeria, but what was there anything in particular that kind of like he instilled in you? Family history, anything? What was it that?
Yeah, so family history. So my dad comes from a very, very large family, whereby, so where do I even begin? So my dad is one of my half brothers and sisters. So my dad's dad had 13 wives, and my dad's mum was the last one. So now you can imagine how big my dad's family is. So so we're from Anambra State in Nigeria. So in Anambra State, we're from a place called Nnewi, and basically in Nnewi, we're from a town called Otolo. And within this particular area, there is basically a town within a town where everyone who has our surname lives in this area. So there's like an extensive row of houses. It's like a massive square, and there's like an extensive row of houses within that. In the middle, there's a town hall. In the middle of that, there's also a school, and there's all these different things that kind of bring us together. There's restaurants, there's like little shops and stuff like that. So it's almost like a town within a town. And I felt that was paramount to us when we were growing up, going constantly. So every time we got to Nigeria every time we came to Nigeria, we always went to the eastern part, which is where Anambra State is, first and foremost, for the first couple of weeks, few days, it doesn't matter. And seeing my family constantly always brought me back to who I was, speaking the language, whether we were speaking it fluently or not. When we got there, it was always spoken. So just that reminder of like, this is our family history, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, which was really, really important. It's not just to my dad, to be honest, that became important to the rest of us as well. Kind of like knowing who your family is. Yes, I don't know every single one of them, because my dad's dad had 13 wives. My mom was the last one. I'm not going to know every single person, but knowing how big my family was, always hearing about our family history, just kind of brings me that sense of belonging again, kind of like roots me to who I am in Nigeria and who my family is in Nigeria, which I think is very important.
So because you grew up here and your mum grew up here, etc., how was that for you then? How did that impact you, kind of like when you were going through school? What was the dynamics in school? Were there lots of Black students, lots of white students? How was it, and how did your cultural identity help you get through, if that makes sense?
Yeah, people might think this is going to be really strange when I say it now, but I'm from Croydon. But when I was in primary school, this is, I can't remember, 1990 something, I can't remember the exact dates now. The primary school I went to in Croydon was actually majority white. And it wasn't something that I thought about straight away when I was there, however. But when it came to certain conversations, like growing up, you go, oh yeah, my mummy made this last night, that kind of thing, or this is what I did this evening. Like if I was in my kitchen with my mum learning to cook and cooking our traditional meals, or if I was, did my language classes, or went to like tutoring sessions on the weekends and stuff like that, and who I did my tutoring with and who I was surrounded with on my off times from school was very different to the responses of other people. I'll go back to the food though. So if I said, oh, by the way, my mum, what did you have last night? They would say X, and I'll say, oh yeah, my mum made a gussie last night. And people are saying, what's that? And like having to constantly explain that to people. And I was like, wow, it's only in hindsight now, actually, now that I'm a bit older and obviously know about a lot of these things now. At school, I wasn't really thinking of that. I was kind of like, okay, there's not many like African people. Actually, that's a lie. I did actually think when I was in primary school that there weren't many Nigerian, Black, or African people in general at my primary school. Right. Then my sister went to secondary school. So I've got an older sister. She's 3 years older than I am. When she went to secondary school, my mom decided that she wanted me to go to the feeder primary school of that secondary school. So she sent me to another one, which is in more central Croydon, called St. Mary's Primary School in West Croydon. When I got there were more, I've never seen that many Black people in my life, I don't think, living, bear in mind, I live in main Croydon. So this, honestly, people must be shocked at what I'm saying, but in a school environment, I'd never seen that many Black people. So when I was having conversations with them, and they would say to me, oh, what did your mum cook last night? What did you have for dinner? Those kind of conversations you have as a child. And I was like, oh, my mum made a gussie. And they said, my mum did too. I remember my face and like how I felt. Like, I was like, wow, I found my people. Like, your parents made this food. Like, you had the same experiences as I do. Wow. Why was it so different from the other place I came from? Actually, it made me happier. I felt more confident going to school. Then I realized that there were more Igbo people in Croydon as well, because I remember being at my previous primary school, I didn't think there were many Igbo people about. So I was like, why are we the only Igbo people in London? That's what I used to say to my dad. He'd say, no, we're not. And I went to this primary school, my next primary school, and there were loads of them. And then we found there was like Igbo church services in West Croydon, in the Catholic church. And because I formed those friendships in primary school, my parents became friends with their parents. I would run home and be like, Dad, I've met so many Igbo people. And he was really excited for me, and he formed friendships with them. And we used to go to these Igbo masses every second Sunday of the month, or whatever that is. And we used to have like community parties and stuff. And that really expanded our friendship circle in Croydon, which was great. I loved it. I felt like I was kind of instrumental to my family forming more friends in Croydon. So it felt kind of good in like a number of ways. And we're still friends with those people till today. So
you were the connector.
Yes, I am.
You went in and you made connections for expanding your territory, as it were. Yeah.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
It's always good.
So just so from there, I'm trying to map your journey from being in school. Did you enjoy school? Were you encouraged at school? How was that for you in terms of aspirations? What was it that your parents wanted you to do, and what did you want to do?
So my parents were very involved in my education. So if I go a bit further back, my mum taught us read and write before we were even in nursery, to be honest. I know how to spell my name. I knew how to read books. Before I got to reception, I was already reading. I was reading like way above my age. Like people were even shocked at the level of the speed I was going at. So when I just got a bit older, I've had tutoring since I was 8 years old. I used to go every Saturday and Sunday to like schools for like maths and the sciences. I also did English lessons. That continued all the way up until I was at A-level stage.
Wow.
Even at that, my mum was very involved in, like, she used to make, like, when we were younger, she would make little exam papers on Microsoft and like test us. She had all of these encyclopedias in like a cupboard, and she'd make all of these little exams and test us and stuff. So she was really, really heavily involved. My dad was the same as well. My dad wasn't the best at mathematics, but he was really good at like history and stuff like that. So he would like tell us about the history of the countries. And there was at one point we knew all the capitals in the world. If you gave us a country when we were younger, I could tell you the capital city of that country. It was just kind of one of those, but they were both very involved in our education. They weren't really pressed on kind of what we did. They just wanted us to do what was best for us. So they would kind of give advice and say, oh, there's careers in the sciences, there's careers in mathematics, there's all of these things, but they pressed on kind of like what we were good at. I always said to my parents, I really liked maths. Well, kind of. I always said to my parents, I really like studying science. I really like exploring new things, and all that kind of stuff. So they would find, so they would find like careers in those sections and kind of say, okay, but you can do this and you can do that. And I think also being tutored and going to those like tuition schools on the weekends just kind of broadened our aspirations a little bit, because everyone parents, but oh yeah, my dad does this, so you kind of knew some of the careers that were out there. But I think what influenced me a lot was my mum. My mum's a nurse, and she's probably one of the best nurses I've ever met in my life. My mum's a massive inspiration to me, but I knew that I wanted to save lives, simply because of my mother. I was like, okay, my mum's my biggest inspiration. I just know I want to save lives, but I didn't know what that meant to me outside of the medical field at the time. So I said, okay, I don't really want to be a nurse. So I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to aim for. Then when I got to A-level stage, long story short, probably a story a lot of people hear, my A-levels didn't go too well. So I decided that I was going to go through clearing and do a general science degree at Brighton University. So went to Brighton University, was there for about maybe 7 months. And I said, I don't really think I'm enjoying this. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Maybe I don't really like science as much as I thought it was, as much as I thought I did. And I was a bit like, in a frenzy. At that point, you're kind of like, what am I going to do next if I don't? So university is kind of the be and end all at that point, isn't it? You're kind of like, if I don't like this subject, what am I going to do next? I didn't think of anything else until one day I dropped out completely. Because I was like, there's no point in me wasting time and money. There's no point wasting time and money. Let me just drop out and see what happens from there. So at that time at university, you had to like hand in a resignation form to say you were dropping out. So I had this massive white envelope with this resignation form in, was about to hand it in, and then someone tapped me on the shoulder. When I turned around, it was one of my friends that I'd met a few months before. I had no idea what he studied. I just knew his name, that kind of thing. And he said, oh, what are you doing? And because, just being a person of color, you don't want to say I'm dropping out of university. Everyone looks at you like, what do you mean? So I just kind of lied to him and said, I'm handing in my coursework. And he said, okay, when you finish doing that, what are you doing next? I said, well, my next lecture is in about 3 hours. I'll just be sitting in the canteen. He said, instead of you doing that, why don't you just come with me to my lecture so you're not so bored? And I said, oh, okay, sure. So something in me was like, Mimi, don't hand in that coursework yet. Just go with this guy and then see how it kind of goes. So long story short, I went with him and he studied civil engineering. And I just fell in love.
With who? The course, or with him? Or
No, I fell in the course. The course, yeah. So when we were there, we were studying bridge design and construction methods. Now, I remember sitting there thinking, okay, but it's just bridges, you know, they take you from A to B, but it's the intricate detail behind that. All the mathematics that's involved, the different types of ways you can install bridges. And I remember the day before, I think this was kind of like a monumental moment for me, actually, because I remember the day before I saw that they were going to install a new bridge, and the day before it wasn't there. Then the next morning the bridge was there, and I went, hold on, how on earth did they do that? And that's what the lecture was about that day. And I went, wow. And
So
that's kind of, sorry,
I was going to say either it's serendipity or it was a sign.
No, honestly, and I was just so fascinated by it all, like how the intricacy of design, the safety of design, and how much planning and management goes into that kind of operation to do something as quickly as that overnight and safely. I think for me, that was the most thing. I thought, how can you do something that quick and it's safe, you know? And then I kind of said to myself, wow, when they design bridges, there's so much detail that's involved and so much thought that goes into like the safety of how this bridge is going to work, etc. So that's when I kind of said to myself, wow, civil engineers don't just save one life a week, you know, or one life a day. They save billions of lives. And I was like, wow, I don't have to be a doctor. I mean, I didn't get in anyway, but I don't have to be a doctor. I can be a civil engineer and save millions and trillions of lives every single day. And that's when I decided 15 minutes after that lecture, I was going to study civil engineering, and I've never turned back since. That's a really long story. Sorry, everyone.
No, it's fine. I'm going to ask a question. So what happened to your coursework? Did the coursework get handed in?
Oh yeah, 100%. I definitely, after that 15 minutes, I definitely handed that in, dropped out, and then I changed to University of Portsmouth to study civil engineering.
Okay. And so your mind had, you had seen the light, as it were, left the biomedical sciences, whatever degree it was, and went into civil engineering. If Sunday was on here, Sunday would be laughing his head off. Sunday's one of my colleagues who says civil engineering is the only science that you can go, only thing that you should do. So he would be loving this right now.
I agree.
So in terms of then getting into Portsmouth and the type of things that you were learning, what was it that kept you motivated, or what was it about the civil engineering which got you, did you see many women in civil engineering, many Black women in civil engineering?
So I think I'll cover the first question first. What kind of kept me motivated in studying was just the learning of new things constantly about my environment. A place that I've now been on this planet for 29 years next week. And I was learning, at that time I was about 21 or something, no, 19. I was learning so much about the environment that I'd been living on for 19 years and didn't really know much about. And it was just the kind of like the new knowledge I was gaining. So for example, I gained a really massive love for materials, particularly concrete and a lot of construction materials. Now, a lot of us know concrete. We know that it's used in our roads, our buildings, our bridges, but I never, why is concrete used the way it is? Why is it the most man-made used material globally? Like, why? So when I found all of these out just by being at university, I thought to myself, wow, this is something that everybody should know. And then that kind of kept me motivated, just learning something new every single year, you know, enhancing what we were learning and stuff like that. Just knowing that I may know a little bit more than some other people, that I can probably teach somebody else. Like I would call my mum most days and say, Mum, hey, did you know this? And she'd say yes. And I'd be like, okay, cool. Cheers. Bye. But yeah, so but my mum was really clever, by the way, and so is my dad. But what was I gonna say? So yeah, were there many women? So actually, funny enough, on graduation day, I counted 6 women graduated. However, I think just coming through the years, I think maybe just the number of people got less during placement years, that kind of thing. But I found there were quite a few women on the course. No, there was definitely 100 and something people on our course. There were definitely about maybe 10 to 15 women, but only 6 graduated. Whether they went on placement years, whether they did X, Y, and Z, I'm not sure. But Black women, there were quite a few. Out of that 15, I'm going to say about 7 of them were Black.
Wow, that's very good.
Yeah. No, it was really good. It was really good. And I felt comfortable as well. So one of my worries of coming to university in general was that would it be diverse? And I remembered, oh yeah, I'm going to Portsmouth, which is not far from London. So, but
Mhm.
but yeah, so going to sports, and I thought, okay, going to sports, would it be diverse? But would engineering be diverse? Would civil engineering be diverse? Even
Yeah.
that, because I found that even when I was studying, there was a lot of white people, particularly white men, and when you spoke to them, some of them anyway, a lot of their parents were already in the construction industry or their dad's own construction firm, directors in like the biggest tier one contractors in the country and blah blah blah. But then yeah, so meeting other Black people and meeting other Black women especially, I felt really, really comfortable, which was quite nice. Some of them were international students as well. Some of them were from Nigeria, whether they be from Nigeria or even Eastern Africa or Southern Africa. At the end of the day, we're all one. So
Yeah.
it just felt really nice to kind of meet others who were like me.
Mhm.
And yeah, I love that. Some of them I still talk to them today. I felt that we really helped each other through the university process. So all of us went on placement at the same time. How has that even happened? I don't know, but we all went on placement at the same time. So
Mhm.
we were really able to help each other in our final year and stuff like that. And it was that sense of community, I suppose. But yeah.
So there was a good there. This is a kind of important point. You had a kind of like a natural community within the community, almost
Yeah.
like going back to the town within the town within the town.
Yes. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. It felt very
yeah.
much like that. Honestly, it did. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's another thing that kind of keeps me going, that sense of community. People
Mhm.
always say, if you have it, it takes a village to raise a
Yeah.
child. And I just think that follows you throughout your life, whether you're actually a child, whether you're at work, whether you're at university, it takes a village to make people feel happy and confident and competent in what they're doing.
Mhm.
So yeah, just having that sort of community at university as well, especially the University of Portsmouth, not to big it up. It's a fantastic university. I've never felt so supported in my life academically
Mhm.
until I went to Portsmouth. So yeah,
Fantastic. I'm going to have to look into Portsmouth a bit more. But
please do. Fantastic.
I'm going to ask another question related to getting work then and the work environment. As a young
Mhm.
woman in the work environment, a young engineer in the work environment, how was that for you? What did you experience anything untoward or how was it?
Okay, so I can start from my placement year actually, because I took a placement.
Mhm.
I kind of saw quite a lot of things. So I remember thinking, yes, I'm going on a placement year. Yes, I'm going to get work experience and all that kind of stuff, and not really thinking much past that. But then I remember when I came to my first day on the construction site I was on, when I walked through the door, bearing in mind I'm in a suit, someone asked me if I was the new cleaner. And I was a bit like, this is going to be a very long road.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, wow, I'm in a suit. And someone has still asked me if I'm the cleaner. Okay, I'm going to let that slide. Bearing in mind, I hadn't been into the office yet. I said, I'm going to let that slide. So I let that slide and went into the office space and realized I was the only Black person on the construction site.
Right.
And I was like, hold on a minute. But there were so many Black people at uni. Where are we? Why aren't we in? This is London, where there's a good concentration of Black people here. Why are we not represented on site, or even in manageable at that? Why aren't we represented here? So I remember going there thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a very long ride. Yeah. And then I started to think to myself, okay, am I the spokesperson for all Black people now? Because it's that burden that you carry at that point. You're like, okay, people are going to ask me everything they want to ask me, which was true. People are going to think that I'm going to be the representative for all Black people and all that kind of stuff, and do all the speak for everybody, though how different we all are, and
Mhm.
speak for everybody. So yeah, there were times where people asked questions about my hair, the usual things that you get from work. Asked about my hair, asked about my foods, and things like that, like my traditional clothing, because I didn't mind actually wearing like my traditional. If I had like a top and a trouser and a skirt, I would sometimes wear the top to it because I like showing who I am. I'm really passionate about my culture, and I'm usually not afraid to do that, not afraid to show that. So I would wear like my traditional tops, but people would ask me about all of that. And yeah, sometimes it was very strange. And I'd be like, why would you ask somebody a question like that, or make that kind of comment to somebody that you don't really know? But yeah, I felt that it was a lot to deal with at the time, because I wasn't just doing my job. I felt like I could never just do my job. I had to be the trainee civil engineer, the spokesperson for all Black people, and also help out in every single D&I initiative that there was ever known on the planet to man. So you never feel like you can just do your job, which was really interesting, actually. But yeah.
So this was in your placement year. You hadn't even qualified as yet. So
Yep.
my question then is, if you saw that that's how it was going to start off, I remember you saying that kind of like earlier that 6 graduated. Did you not have a feeling then, am I in the right field, even though you think it's something that you love? What am I going to have to be facing as I go forward from here?
Yes. So I took my placement year in my second year. So when I went back to university, I think again, it's probably just me. Like, I was trapped back in that university bubble where I was comfortable again. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, so that was just that place, it may not be other places. And because I was back in a place where I thought there are so many Black people doing not just civil engineering, but every other sort of engineering too, because in construction sites, all engineering disciplines work together. So I was like, but there's so many Black people doing engineering. So maybe if I go to another place, it will be different. And honestly, my job after graduation was based in Croydon. Right. And it was a global civil engineering consultancy. And my office, in the office that I worked in, there was 2 white people, 2. Right. And the rest of us are either Black, Asian, or another minority ethnic background. And that made me feel comfortable. I was like, wow, okay, so it is just that place. It is just that one company. And I said, okay, there are other Black civil engineers. But then what was quite instrumental to me during my first job after uni, my graduate scheme, was finding the association of Black and minority ethnic engineers. Because even though I was surrounded by loads of Black people at work, when I went to the graduate the graduate day where they invite all the graduates in the company to go and meet each other and that kind of stuff. I remember being there, and there was me and one other, and they said they employed 150 graduates across the country. And that's when I kind of looked around and went, really? Are you joking? So anyway, that's when I was like, right, yep, my office is a very isolated situation because of where it's based. And yeah, so that's when I decided, okay, cool, like, where are we? Like, where are the others? Am I missing something? Is it just this company again? So then I started to feel a bit like an imposter, even though I was in a place where I was surrounded by the Black people, I was really enjoying, what I was doing, that kind of stuff. And then I heard about the Association for Black and Minority Ethnic Engineers, AFBE. And I went, what's that? And then it turns out that one of my friends was going to one of their events. So I tagged along with her. Yeah. And I met so many Black engineers. And I was like, do you know what? Even if these people are not in my office and not in my company, I have this community elsewhere.
Right.
And that is what kept me. And then I left that job anyway. But that's what kept me going.
That's brilliant, because a couple of weeks ago we had Professor Ollie for the founder.
Yeah, he's like my older brother. He's great.
He's fantastic. And it was because of his experiences why he set up the association in the first place. And it was because, and it's almost like come full circle from hearing his story to now hearing your story about how knowing that the association was there helped you to say, actually, there is place for me here. I have community. Yeah, I agree. I think that that's fantastic.
No, honestly, it was really instrumental. When I saw that room, so when I went to this event, there was just a room full of young Black engineers doing really well. So not all of us were young Black engineers, but just going through the scope, whether they were managerial level, going upwards, just doing really, really well, doing good, doing massive things, and just not even what they were doing, but they were just in the industry. So I was thinking, where do all of these people work? Because I don't see them. But in their companies, there were one of 3 Black people as well, but hey. But it was just nice to kind of see that these people are here, they're doing good things, and they're encouraging others to do the same, and they're encouraging others to progress in their careers as well. And then I formed a really good relationship with Dr. Ollie Falayan and Dr. Nikki Falayan as well. And then I found out about mentorship. I'm mentored by Dr. Nikki Falayan, which is the other co-founder of AFBE.
Yeah.
And so just having that person to kind of like show me how my career can progress, all the opportunities that are in place and all that kind of stuff really made me be more focused. I'm now thinking about getting chartered, all of those things, all the opportunities that are out there, all the people I can meet, that kind of thing. But again, it goes back to community, isn't it? And that sense of belonging.
Yeah.
The title of this series, you know. So
that's, I really, I couldn't have people. I haven't planned this. I didn't put it in place that these two should come up so close together. But I really do think that that's a fantastic story, or a fantastic experience that you're sharing, that actually the mentorship which that program provides you with is helping to broaden your horizon and not stifle you and say, well, I don't see anybody else, I don't know if I can do it, because you now have people who are saying, look, I'm a role model for you. I'm a mentor for, not just a role model, I'm someone who can come back and help you to get to where you want to get to.
No, definitely. Yeah. I think it's such a selfless thing to do, to kind of say, I'm doing well and I want others to do well as well. And to actively put that effort into seeing the progression of other people is such a selfless thing. Like I cannot thank Dr. Nikki Falayan and Dr. Ollie Falayan like enough for everything that they've done for me in the last couple of years, like, and how much they impact other people as well. Honestly, without FB, I wouldn't have known. I would have just been sat in my office, like confused about, you know, what I was going to do and who I was going to meet and stuff. But they gave me so much perspective on our industry, even though they're not civil engineers either, which I think is another important thing as well. People always say, oh, but they're not civil engineers. How are you forming this such a relationship with people who probably may not know enough about your career? And I was like, no, but they're engineers, they're in the industry, they know how it works, they know it's not just about the technical side of civil engineering. Well, okay, yeah, you know, they know about the softer skills that I need. And as you go up the ladder, you become less technical. The skills become a lot softer, even though the job is harder. The skills become a lot of those softer skills. So yes.
Brilliant. I'm going to ask, because I gave you the big up at the start about the Rising Star Award winner in 2020. Yes. Can you give us an illustration of what it was that you did that enabled you to receive that award?
Yeah, so at that time, so when I left my first company, I went to work for a second organization because I wanted to go back and working with concrete. I promise it goes on to why I won the award. I wanted to work with concrete because that was something I said before that I really enjoyed materials at university. So working at this company gave me the opportunity to specialize in concrete production and quality. So whilst I was at this job, I did a really good job, as well as I told you I'd met AFBE. So I was really involved in like volunteering at not just AFBE, but several organizations and doing loads of things on social media, collaborating with different organizations as well to promote a career in civil engineering. And that was picked up by the ICE. And I was nominated by someone in my organization for the Rising Star Award. And when I saw that I was going to get nominated, I was kind of a bit like, will I actually get this? Like, what are the chances of this, you know? But anyway, I thought, you know what, let me say yes, because, you know, every opportunity you grasp it with two hands, that kind of thing. And at the end of the day, the most that can happen is that they decline me. So when I was a finalist, I was like, wow, this could really happen, you know, things started to become a bit more real. And then when they told me I'd won, I was like, oh, this is instrumental to me, because I said, you know, if I can win this, I can win anything. I can, you know, really put my mind and like aspire to much bigger things as well. And, you know, that kind of thing. And then what happened after that? After that, I started to get more involved in like, encouraging people to come into engineering. And then after that, the next year, I won the top 50 women in engineering for that year. And I went, is that me again? It is. That is me. And I can do that. And I was like, wow. And then all of these vast amount of opportunities started coming. So even when people are like, okay, but what does winning awards do for you? It opens so many opportunities. Like, for example, now I don't just civil engineer, I also do television. And that's because of the exposure that all of these awards has given me and that kind of thing. So I get to talk about concrete on television, not just to people at my job who are probably not that interested, but I get to talk to other people about what I enjoy and about our environment. Exactly, going back full circle to the exact reason why I love civil engineering, because it was that kind of like, I didn't know about this. Do other people know about this? So now I'm sharing that knowledge on national television, which is global. Some of the channels I've been on are global channels, and sharing my knowledge with other people. And I just think that's great. And I'm so grateful for my friend that day for showing me civil engineering, simply because of that. It's been a whirlwind, but I've loved it. I've loved every moment.
I'm going to ask a quick question, because
Mhm.
this is just kind of like linking two things which you said right at the start, where you said that kind of like sometimes you felt as though you had to be the face and be involved in every D&I initiative that was
Yeah.
around. Okay. And then here, where you were describing the fact that it's given you the opportunity to talk about concrete, talk about your passion for concrete and civil engineering. When
Yeah.
you're in those environments, do you ever feel that they're pushing you down to just speak about being a Black woman, or do you feel that you can speak openly about the passion of your discipline? So I'm
Mhm.
just trying to see how you feel about the the difference, if you get what I mean.
So that's a really, really good question, actually, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day. So when I first started my career, and doing all the D&I stuff, people wanted me to talk about being a Black woman in civil engineering, Black woman in engineering, etc. And then as I got further down in my career, I kind of said to myself, I actually have an expertise. Like, I'm not just Black doing what I'm doing. I have an expertise. I'm really passionate about civil engineering, and I'm actually kind of good at my job. So I want to talk about concrete. So then I started being picky and choosy about the talks I would attend, the panels that I would sit on, because I don't want people to just know me as being the Black woman in civil engineering. That's not going to help me
Mhm,
the whole time. So I wanted to talk about my expertise in concrete and my passion for concrete. Expertise is a very loose term, but my passion, I don't know anything about concrete, to be honest, but like my passion for concrete, I wanted to talk to people about what I knew. So when people would ask me, okay, do you want to do this, talk about women in engineering, or do you want to talk about concrete? And I say, okay, if I'm going to present at whatever seminar or a workshop or conference this is, I'm also going to talk about concrete,
mhm.
even if it's just like a couple of slides where I'm educated, depending on the audience. I don't, to be honest, at this point, I don't mind who the audience is. There is going to be a couple of slides where I'm educating people about concrete and why concrete is important and what we are doing in our industry to make concrete a more sustainable material. It doesn't matter who the audience is. And if they don't accept that I'm not going to talk about concrete somewhere in my presentation, I'm probably not doing it.
Right. So you're now being able to frame the narrative in
Mm-hmm.
which spaces that you want to occupy. You're not just
Yeah.
being typecast or labeled as
Yeah.
a black woman civil engineer, and you want
Yeah.
it to be that way, that you are known for your expertise
Mm-hmm.
in the field.
Yes. But that also
Yeah,
doesn't mean I don't do D&I conversations. For
yeah,
example, I'm doing one today.
yeah.
Um, but the majority of the ones that I do choose take precedence over being a Black woman in civil engineering,
Hmm.
definitely.
Hmm.
But again, like, I can't, for me, those two stories are entwined, like
Yeah,
they're
that's right.
together.
Yeah.
They're very much the same. I can't help Black. I mean, I love it. I think it's almost like something that's really made me stand out quite a bit. And also having an interest in concrete. How many people do you know that has an interest in concrete? So I just think if I want to be known for something, I want to be known for my technical expertise, because at the end of the day, as I always say to people, to other people that I mentor, we do that all the time. They're allowed to be known for their expertise in whatever side of engineering that is, and they're known just for that. They're not known for being the white man in blah blah blah. So I want to be the same. I
Yeah.
want to go down in history not for being the Black woman in civil engineering, which obviously they'll know that just by googling my name or even reading
Hmm.
my name without even seeing me. But I want next to my name to say concrete expert or materials
Hmm.
expert or whatever that is.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I want to be known for. I think more people should push for that as well. So yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to just, at this point, I'd normally ask if there's any questions, if there's anyone who has any questions that they'd like to ask Mimi. Your story is just so fascinating.
Thank
I
you.
I'm not seeing any hands at the moment, so I'm going to ask another question, and that question is, what do you see yourself achieving within the field of concrete, or what do you see? How do you see yourself progressing?
I think first and foremost, at the moment, I'm going for my chartership application. So I want to be a chartered engineer. That is my ultimate goal. Hopefully by next year. Let's all
Yeah.
hope. Hopefully by next year, I'll finish my chartership application, and then after that, I want to do more work in sustainable concrete. So as we know now, that we're part of this like net zero program where they want to, reduce the amount of carbon emissions in the atmosphere. And I know there's a lot of work going on with that. I want to be part of that work. In what realm, I'm not sure. But I do want to be part of those conversations. Something I've always aspired to is like policy, changing policy, and like becoming, even if it's not just just engineering, but becoming part of that science policy, maybe going into education. I've done quite a few things with universities. So for example, there's a new university and I helped them write their degree program, which I was like, wow, and people are actually studying it, that kind of thing, and I really enjoyed that. So maybe like going down the education route. I'm not sure. There's so many opportunities. I think that's what people forget. You don't just have to be an engineer. Your career is not so linear. You can engineer in so many different ways. So like, for example, television, you can educate others. You can create degree programs for new universities like I've done. You can be, your normal engineer that you want to do. You can go into policy, you can go into humanitarian engineering, you can travel around the world, all that kind of stuff. Because there's so many things, I think it's still okay to kind of say, I still don't know. Because you never know. The world is changing, in 10 years, there'll be another job that I'm probably interested in. So yeah. But at the moment, I think my main focus is to get chartered, and then see how things go from there. Because as we all know from just my career trajectory, it hasn't been linear. So I don't know. When people ask me what I want to do in 5 years, I start panicking because I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm kind of just gonna hope for the best at this moment and see what I enjoy in the years.
I'm going to just ask my final question, well, second from last question, right? Have you been able to, because much of the experiences which you've described so far seem to have been kind of like locally based in the UK. Have you been able to go abroad, go overseas and do work in other countries? And would you like to do that?
Not so much. So I remember not so much. A lot of my projects have been like large infrastructure projects in the UK. So for example, I used to work on HS2. So because most of my career was based around HS2, I just worked a lot on HS2. But I've done, I don't know how to explain this, but I've had people come from other countries to come to my organization and ask about how we're doing, how we're working with concrete and stuff like that. They have invited us over. So for example, we were invited to Turkey, we've been invited to Paris and all of these places, but we just didn't have the time and capacity to kind of go over to be invited, to be kind of hosted by them. But I would love to. Oh, absolutely. I would love to go abroad. But yeah, when the opportunity comes, comes, more than happy to. We'd love to see how different design codes are applied across the world, because I only know the European standards and the British standards that we have here. So I would love to see how those standards differ across the world. Definitely.
Fantastic. I'm just thinking, I can see you as a consultant jetting off doing, I can see it there already, Gail.
Hopefully. That's one of the goals, is to kind of like work for myself and kind of like put my services out there, concrete MIMS or something like that. And then people message me and go, hey, we're in Tokyo. And I'll be like, right, this is great. But that kind of thing, hopefully. I don't know. It's one of those things, I don't know. Like anything could happen.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask my final question. And that's the question is related to looking back when you were growing up. If you were talking to your younger self, what do you think would be the wow factor that your younger self would say about what you've achieved so far?
Do you know what's going to sound really hilarious? But I think going on television. So, we're going on television for what I'm on television for. Because I remember in secondary school, I was named as the most person to likely end up on reality television. So for the fact I'm doing factual television documentaries about engineering, is just insane to me. Wow, that is definitely not what I thought I was going to end up on Big Brother, if I'm being honest. That was literally my dream growing up, to be on Big Brother and, you know, kind of work things out from there. So to know that I'm on television talking about concrete is just, yeah, not what I was expecting, but that will be it, definitely.
I love that answer. I love that. Red has a question.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's really,
welcome.
really inspiring actually to hear all about your journey, and always gives me a bit of a lift as well, like as a lady scientist. I'm not an engineer, but I do have like more of a comment than a question on that. And it's that Black women are really very good scientists.
Yes.
And we are, like, it's ridiculous. And I think it's funny because growing up, we're probably not subject to the same gender ideals as our white counterparts. I think white women I went to school with had very different ideas of what they could be in future than the ones I had at home. Like I have 4 sisters and 3 of us are scientists and 1 is an engineer. And I just feel like that's one of, love it. I love it. And I feel like that's one of the real strengths that we have a very different narrative at home. And society doesn't necessarily see us in the same way as white women. So it means we can step into that and, you know, engineering and science role a bit more easily. So that's something we can have faith in. Even
I agree.
More challenging actually progressing in the field. It's there. Our talent and skills is there.
I definitely agree. No, honestly, even when I go into schools now, and I talk about, you know, like engineering and et cetera, it's so nice to see, especially when I go into schools that are majority Black. Those are my favorite schools to go into, by the way. But when I go in and I speak to the young children and they're like, oh, you know, I want to be a scientist, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a, you know, all of these different things I've probably never even heard of. Like I heard someone say they wanted to be a rocket scientist and I went, damn, I'd never heard of that when I was younger. Like it just wasn't a career path that came up. I know people would say, oh, it's not rocket science, but to me, it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it. I wasn't thinking of rocket science per se. I was kind of like, okay. But like to hear young people like really being passionate, like the first time in a long time was the other day when I heard someone say, I want to be a civil engineer. And I sat down I pulled them to the side and I went, how did you hear of civil engineering? Because I'd never heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, yeah, honestly, and he said that he was reading, it was online. He said that he typed in how to design buildings and civil engineering came up. And I went, wow. That is just like the access to, you know, the internet, the access to social media. Obviously we had access to the internet back then as well, but dial up, you know, but like, we have so much easier access now. Like to hear people say they want to do engineering, they want to be a scientist. Like I heard a little girl saying to me the other day, she wants to study hematology at university. And I went, how do you even know about this? No, honestly, no, it's true. And honestly, it was so fantastic to hear. And like someone going, I want to study virology. And I was like, does anyone want to study engineering? And everyone kind of looked at me like, but like, you know, it was just so lovely because Black women make such fantastic scientists. I know so many Black women, now including you, Rema, like who are doing amazing, groundbreaking things in science. Like, oh, it's just amazing to see and hear. So honestly, keep pushing is what I'm going to say, and keep breaking those ceilings and leading the way for other young Black women as well.
Absolutely. Well, I love your tip about, regardless of the talk, you always throw in bits about concrete. Even now. Viruses, so I think I might start doing that. And
honestly, your knowledge is so useful now. Like most people are, you know, aware of, you know, COVID and all these kind of things and want to know more. This is your time to shine. Honestly, if you want to go on TV, Raymond, this is your time. They're looking for people with your knowledge. So,
thank you, Mimi. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
You know what? I could have just sat back and just let the two of you just carry on your conversation. But you know, all good things must come to an end, and this is just the beginning of the end, right? This is just the beginning. Really have appreciated your candid discussions with us, and I agree with what Red said just now as well with regards to liking your tip to always make sure that whenever you're in, whether it's a D&I talk or whatever, that you make sure that your specialism, you showcase your specialism, Yeah,
100%.
because I think sometimes we do get pigeonholed, we do get typecasted in a particular role, and sometimes we don't get the, how can I put it, elevation within our career path that we really need. So absolutely brilliant. I'm going to be looking out for the next award ceremony and seeing you up there collecting your gongs and everything. And chartered engineer consultancy, I'm just looking at the name, Mimi Concrete or Concrete Meet, I don't know, whatever it
Honestly,
is, I'm looking out for
Mimi Crete is what I've thought about. Mimi Crete, it just makes more sense.
Okay.
But honestly, thank you so much. It's been such a massive honor to be invited on Imperial as One Belonging series. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. I'm going to just share with everyone what we're going to be seeing next week. And next week we're going to have a young scientist, another young female scientist, Zainab Saeed, and she's a PhD student at Imperial College working on pregnancy and virology. So it's going to be a really interesting discussion with her next week. If you have missed any of the previous interviews, you can catch up with them on our YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging-IAO. And there's a few other places where you can find out some of the key stories or some interesting stories from our first 100 guests. Now, as I've said before, and I'll say it every week, it's because of these wonderful people sharing their stories that we are able to get a better sense of what it means to belong. So, you know what? Let's keep going out there and let's keep making sure that we have that sense of belonging. It starts within and then it spreads out. Thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you again next week.